There are many times when we need to create a clickable buttons to change tabs in DriveWorks projects. In today's video, I will show you how to do that easily, just like the example you see on the screen, and let's see how to do that. Let's say the user clicks the engineering button, they should be able to see the engineering controls. If they click manufacturing, they will see the manufacturing controls. And if they click operation, they will see the operation controls. Let's walk through how we can achieve this step by step. First, we need to understand the case study. When you are presented with a case like this, your first job is not to jump into DriveWorks and start clicking. Instead, think how to convert the idea into a clear workflow. I usually start by highlighting key phrases from the scenario, like set of buttons that tells me I'll need to use a macro buttons, display different tabs inside the form. This means I will need to create a frame control. So now I know I will have a multiple forms. I'll use macro buttons to trigger an actions. I will use a frame control to switch views dynamically. Number 2, plan the final setup. Here is the final vision. I will create 3 forms: engineering form, manufacturing form, and operations form. Then I will create a main form that contains a frame control. The frame control will display one of the above forms based on which button the user clicks. The macro buttons will trigger which form is displayed. So before we even open DriveWorks, we now have a clear plan, and this makes building the solution much easier. Number 3 will be understanding the frame control. A frame control always requires a form name. This form name can be static, always display the same form, or dynamic, displays different forms based on a value. And that's exactly what we want. To achieve that, we need to link the form name in the frame control to a constant or variable. Whenever that value changes, the frame will load a different form. Number 4 will be set up the macro buttons. Each macro button needs 2 key pieces. First, the macro name, which links to an action. Second, the argument, which tells us which button was clicked. In our case, we want an action to save the argument into a constant. That way we know which button the user clicked. And finally, the workflow summary. First will be creating a constant. This constant will hold the value of the selected form, like engineering, manufacturing, or operation. Second, create a specification macro action. The action will be drive a constant value based on the macro argument. This action takes the clicked button's argument and saves it to the constant. Number 3 will be creating a macro buttons. Each button will use the same macro name, the one we just created, but have a different arguments. For engineering, we'll have an argument equal to engineering. For manufacturing, the argument will be manufacturing. For operation, the argument will be operation. And finally, configure the frame control. We will set the form name value to a dynamic and link it to the constant we created. So now, when the user clicks a button, the argument is saved into the constant. The frame controls read the constant. The correct form is displayed inside the main form. Let's now implement these steps in DriveWorks. First, let's create the constant. Second, let's go to create an action in the specification macro tab. And third, we will add the macro buttons to our main form and assign their macro arguments. And finally, we will add the frame control and set form name value to a dynamic to use the constant we just made. And let's test the setup. And that's it. I hope this video helped you clearly understand how to create dynamic clickable buttons that shows different content in your DriveWorks forms. See you in the next one.